Sometimes we got to dig deep and find our passion, find what works for us. Sometimes it's not all about winning, but certainly it's about that experience. For us, it's all about winning that experience.
Against the win, a chance for Canada to add to its lead. O'Leary, it's up and through.
Wait for him, good.
Dangerous looking line over there for a moment for the Americans, but they hold and will maul forward.
Out, forward.
Canada looking to stand up. O'Leary stares it down. And through. Although a touch pass there. Heaton, O'Leary, Blevins onto the far side. Cole, can he find the try? He does!
Listen to the roar for John Muldoon and his troops. Came through the young Munster setup, Cork born, so he's from Munster. 4 from 5 last week against Grenoble. So his place kicking was good down in France, and he likes the contact he has made on that one too. There's no better man to finish off your movement. Well, it does finish with 3 more.
Okay, welcome to this week's Always Winning the Experience. I'm your host, Jason Kenny. I'm here with Shane O'Leary, professional rugby player. Shane, I suppose the best thing to do is probably give us an idea. First of all, you're in France, which is obviously amazing, and looking a bit burnt. But you might talk us a small bit about where things are at and what you've been doing to now.
Yeah, hi Jason. Thanks for having me on again. It's always nice to have a chat with you. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I moved over to France there about 6 or 7 weeks ago, I'd say, the end of May. So I've joined up with Rouen Normandy in the Pro D2 for the next season. So yeah, enjoying it so far. Like you said, a bit burnt. There doesn't seem to be enough sun cream in the world to stop me from burning. So, but yeah,
like,
trying to look after my skin anyway. My mum's on to me every single time we have a phone call. Are you using sunscreen? And my missus is as well, so I better start using a bit more.
Yeah, listen, once a mammy, always a mammy, huh?
Yeah, I think that's it exactly. There's no getting away from it.
Yeah. But
yeah, so,
how did you kind of get started? I suppose for anyone listening who doesn't really know much about you, how did you kind of get started? And maybe just talk me through it a small bit.
Yeah. So back in the day, I suppose, when I was 8 or 9 years old, we moved out to Ballinlough-Killaloe. I think I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and there had been a rugby club, Ballinlough-Killaloe, but it had kind of disintegrated a bit. It wasn't really, it wasn't going strong, or I don't think there was any teams at the time. And my father, Declan, Dennis O'Mara, and Liam Malloy, I'm sure there was 1 or 2 others as well, but I think they were kind of the main orchestrators in it, brought mini rugby back to Ballinlough-Killaloe again. So the numbers grew and grew and grew, and we played under 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s up until that age, and then we amalgamated with Scariff out in obviously in East Clare, and I think Paul Denning would have been one of the main drivers of the mini rugby out there. So he linked up with my dad and Dennis and Liam, and we managed to get a 15-a-side team for under 13s. So yeah, I think we didn't win 1 game that season. And then the following season, under 14, we got to the cup final or something. So it took us a while to learn, but we got going anyway, and it was good. And I played out there then until under 18, and then I moved into Limerick, into Young Munsters, to try and play. I suppose All Ireland League was the ambition and the aim, and I suppose to put myself in a position maybe to get a Munster Academy place, being at a higher club in a higher league than Scariff would have been. So I think we're in junior 3 at the time or something like that. So obviously going to be Munsters, they were in the top division in the country. So yeah, played with them for a few seasons, and then I managed to play with the Canada under 20s. So we went to the World Trophy down in Chile, and I suppose it sounds a bit weird me playing for Canada, considering I'm the most Irish sounding person ever.
Yeah.
So
So how
mum,
was that? How did that happen?
so mum was born in Canada, so through her roots, I suppose that makes me eligible to play for them. So I got in contact with them after my year with the Munster 20s. Didn't get any Irish 20s interest. So it actually started with my dad saying to me one day, joking, "Oh, should you go play rugby with Canada?" And then we kind of looked at each other and we're like, "Oh, would that be an avenue that we could maybe look at?" So yeah, we looked it up, and there was an English gentleman from Leeds that was over there called Mike Shelley. So we shot off a couple of emails, and before you knew it, I was flying out to a camp in Minnesota, a 2-week camp there before we went back up to Vancouver Island to Victoria and did a couple of weeks there, and then we shot down to the World Trophy, where we actually finished second that year, and we lost to Italy in the final. I think it was 33-18 or something. So we gave a pretty good showing of ourselves as well. They kind of pulled away in the last 20 minutes. We got a couple yellow cards and stuff, but yeah, no, it was good. It was a pretty strong showing from a Canadian side at that age, especially going up against Italy, who are a tier 1 nation. They'd obviously got relegated from the World Cup the year before, so that was class. And then off the back of that, I managed to get out to Grenoble in France, joined their academy for a year. Still had no interest at home from Munster or anything. So I suppose down the path, less travelled, and went home, packed my bags, and about 10 days later, after getting back from Chile, I was off to France, having never been away from home for more than, I suppose, a week or two before. I was gone for 6 weeks, home for 1, and then off for 12 months. So yeah, that was class. And obviously, like I said, I'm back out here now, so that obviously stood well to me. Picked up a bit of French and didn't know how much of it I could remember when I came out here. And the first few days was pretty quiet, but I'm into the hang of it now again, into the swing of things. So
Yeah.
It's really stood well to me. I think it was probably one of the reasons why Richard Hill, our coach, was probably a bit more interested in me. I think there's probably a couple of lads he was looking at, but the fact that I'd been here before kind of had a bit of an idea how the French operate. So I think that helped me get out here. But like I said, I did 12 months in Grenoble, and played my first professional rugby match out there. I think I played 5 times in the Challenge Cup for them that year, so that was class. After going over from only playing a handful of senior AIL matches, I suppose probably only played 5 or 10, and then coming out, and I suppose 8 months later I'm playing, or less than 8 months, probably 6 months later I'm playing my first professional rugby match against Wasps. So that was a bit mad. I didn't really know what was going on. I suppose looking back now, probably wasn't very prepared for it, but yeah, exactly, kick and chase. So yeah, that was good. I suppose obviously did well enough and managed to get a contract back in Ireland with Connacht. So yeah, played for Connacht for 3 seasons.
And scored a try against Munster and everything.
In Thomond Park. Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I was a bit upset with you that day.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I think Munster still beat the pants off us that day. So yeah, it was a good one for all my my Munster friends anyway. Munster win and I managed to score, so it was good. And yeah, then the following year we won the Pro 12, so that was obviously massive for the West of Ireland and for Connacht, and obviously for me, I featured I think for 4 or 5 minutes off the bench. And probably my not my preferred position of the wing. But anyway, you'll take the cap and you'll take the medal, and it was good to play across the season and have a few involvements before the final as well. So that was good. And then after that, I suppose I've spent the last 3 years then in England in the second division over there. I did 1 year in London with Ealing, and then 2 years in Nottingham, obviously in the Midlands. So that obviously went well enough, and I've jumped over here now to Rowan. So yeah, it's all going well. It's been
incredible
interesting
story.
path. I don't know how many people have jumped around like that, but yeah, no, it's been good. And obviously I'm playing with the Canadian senior team now as well, and we went to the World Cup last year and so on and so forth like that. And I suppose I've been in South America a few times, in the States, North America, toured Europe, and then Japan obviously just gone the last September, October, which was phenomenal. Surreal is probably a good word for it. It was mad. I didn't at the time. I suppose it's cool, but looking back on it now, you kind of
Yeah.
you can think about it and kind of process it a bit more, and it was class. So it's
Yeah. But
yeah,
it's
I've
it's
been
it's kind of really worked out for you. I mean, I suppose obviously after doing, finishing school and stuff, to make that decision then to I suppose follow the path of rugby. Was that kind of hard to make that decision, or was you were dead set on doing that? You weren't going to go into any course or do anything in particular. You said, no, I'm doing rugby. That's it.
Yeah, so you mentioned that I decided that after school, but I think I decided that when I was about 11 years old or 10 years old, and I think school took a bit of a backseat, which probably wasn't the right way to do it. But no, I think when I was 15 or 16, I started training in some talent identified squad or whatever you want to call it, 3 mornings a week before school. So we'd have gym at 6, skills from 7 to 8, fly out the road and into school about half an hour late, giving out every day, but that was all right too. So, but yeah, no, when I left school, I did exercise and health fitness inside UL. So I did 2 years with the NCF, which was good. I enjoyed doing it. And I suppose I was going to jump on and do the 3rd year, but when the opportunity came up to join an academy, which I suppose, while I hadn't been accepted into the Munster Academy or Sub Academy or anything 2 years before that, was still a constant goal. And this was the fire was burning inside me to kind of give it a go and see what I could do. And suppose I've always been pretty passionate in what I've with rugby and all sport in general. So I quite like the challenge of it, and I think it was nice to kind of, I suppose,
fulfill your dream.
Sparkly, stick the 2 fingers up to anyone that had doubted me before and said, I'm going off in this direction and I'm going to give it a bash. And I've had a hell of a career so far. I've been enjoying it.
Oh, it's amazing.
Dad and I were only chatting about it not too recently, and it's been a hell of an adventure. So yeah, no, it's been good.
Yeah, no, I could have crossed you there. Apologies, but what I was going to say was, do you know something I love about it as well? And I love about you is that perseverance, that constant. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going and keep going, because I suppose there's obviously highs and there's obviously lows as well, and sometimes there could be more lows than highs at the best of times. And you're starting a new club, starting with new people and new colleagues and stuff, and then you have to kind of almost reinvent yourself all over again in a certain kind of fitting in and learning the plays and stuff like that. And obviously you're going to bring your own little bit of I suppose talent to the game and your own skill. But how do you find that in terms of all the travel and the kind of chaos of moving around and stuff? How does Shane kind of ground himself and kind of go, right, I'm going to stay focused, stay driven here now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose when I was younger, I probably just packed up and fired everything into a suitcase and off I went and landed in and kind of just, probably didn't grasp it as much as I would now, kind of, I suppose the importance of settling and all that. Sure, I would have slept anywhere or eaten anything back when I went to France the first day just to be there, I suppose, but now my missus moved over last year to England, which made that transition easier, come back from the World Cup. So it was grand. I had someone there to lean on and vice versa. So that was good. And then she's just joined me in France now last week. So I suppose that's probably a good way of keeping grounded, is
nice
having someone that you're so close with outside of rugby. And my girlfriend's Canadian, so she probably, she's getting the grips with rugby now, but it wouldn't be the strongest of sports. I'm kind of, competing with hockey and football and lacrosse even, and there's loads of sports. So I suppose having that where you can kind of pretty much switch off from rugby, but also talk about it if you need to, is really good. I think, and kind of having your mates, like visitors coming, kind of helps you settle as well. You've been at home, but sure, all Irish people do is complain about stuff anyway, so makes you not miss home as much then when people are coming over moaning. But no, it's good. Yeah, I think it's like, I've been quite lucky in the sense that I've kept nearly all my friends outside of rugby from when I was younger, and I'm still very close with them, so they keep me grounded. If ever anything goes well, I just get slagged and slated for doing well at something, so that's a good way of keeping you grounded, which I quite enjoy. It's good crack. So it's nice to have, obviously you've got your mates in rugby, but it's nice to have people outside of it as well. I think it helps you keep a level head, and if you do get a bit cocky, then same with my family, they'll shut me down pretty quickly. So
they pull it back.
that's good. It's good. I think it's having those influences outside of the game as well is massive to playing well. If you previously I would have lived with rugby lads all the time, and some days you go home from training and you wake up in the morning, you have breakfast, you talk about rugby, you go to training, you talk about rugby for 6 to 8 hours, and you go home then and you talk about rugby, and then there's a rugby match on that night, so you do rugby again, and it's grand for a while, but after a while you just just get a bit burnt out of it, like, you know, kind of. I suppose obviously I love rugby a lot, like, and it's a massive part of my life, but it is also quite nice to have areas outside of it where you just don't have to think about it for a while, especially with now you train, but training's not finished yet. You've so much analysis to do, and if you don't, you get left behind. You're not going to get a job, so it's it's busy. But like I said, having those influences outside of it is key, I think.
I love it. No, it's great because I think we all need that someone in our life to kind of hold us back. Someone who's actually going to talk to you like you should, you know, I suppose. A lot of people can tell you stuff that you want to hear, but it's the stuff you don't want to hear is what's important. That's where the learning is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice hearing what you want to hear sometimes as well, though.
Yeah. It is nice every now and then, all right, to get another pick me up. But so what's a typical day in the life of Shane? Just give someone an example of what you do, kind of. I know you're in pre-season at the moment now, but just to kind of snippet. Yeah,
so pre-season at the moment is it's pretty busy. I know the Irish squad, or the Irish provinces, have just joined back into team training and stuff, but we've been at that for the last 4 or 5 weeks, I think. So we've been, general day, I suppose, is up at around 7, 6:30, 7. Bowl of porridge and about 5 coffees, and then I'm out the door on the way to. We usually have gym first at about 7:30 or 8. So we gym for an hour. Then we're over. We've coronavirus testing now every Monday. You've got to be tested every week. So even last week we had a down week, but we're still in on Monday to do the testing in order to be able to continue to train as a group. Then obviously, if it's a single case, we go back to training as small groups of 4 and 5. So obviously, people are still trying to be somewhat socially distanced and social distancing, yes, but I mean, like, all the pubs and restaurants and everything are open here, so life is pretty normal here, to be honest. But
really,
you have to wear a mask inside all the time. Lots of people wear them in the streets all the time. If you're doing your grocery shopping or whatever, you have to wear a mask. So even in the gym now, we have masks. You have to change your shoes as you come in, different towels. We were wearing gloves up until about 2 weeks ago. So there's all the protocols. But I suppose we do the coronavirus testing back in, then skills from about 10:30 to 11:30, and then we usually have lunch at 12 to 1:15, meeting at 2 on the pitch then for the team session at about 2:30. So as we're knocking out 3 physical sessions a day. You've got your analysis session if you need to get physio treatment to do that, and then once or twice a week we're doing this cryotherapy at the moment. So
super stuff.
Into a room minus 110 degrees for 5 minutes and come out and you're freezing. Your body temperature drops by about 20-25 degrees. So one of the lads came out today, and his skin was 11 degrees. So that was pretty cold. So, and he went in at 36. So I suppose you can't be in there too long or it starts burning you, but 5 minutes is decent.
Just on the cryotherapy, do you find that beneficial? Because I'm big into the whole cold therapy.
I don't know if I find it as good as cold, like ice baths and stuff, just because there's no humidity in the air. But it is cold. It's not warm in there, like. But I think when you're submerged in water, I find probably it helps probably a bit more, maybe. I haven't looked into the sciences behind it too much, but I'm enjoying doing it. It's a nice experience. Like, you come out and you definitely feel better then, but then I suppose stiffness and soreness comes back in the evening. Mind you, training load is so high at the moment. You do anything to try and get 1%. Lads are putting skins on every night, foam rolling, massage guns, getting extra rub downs after training, just trying to so the body can take the training load that we can do at the moment. You don't really want to miss out. Not in this part of the season. You miss out and you don't get your foundations down now. You struggle during the year, and niggles can turn to proper injuries. So I'm enjoying it. It's the first time I ever did it now the last few weeks. But like I said, I'm enjoying it. I don't know how much of an effect I'm feeling because I'm so knackered and
sounds like it's
all the time. So.
Yeah, it's full on. It doesn't seem like you're getting much of a break. And I was going to ask you then, like, do you ever get to a point where you're going, oh, just give me a day off. I just need
So at the moment we get a down day on Wednesday and we're off Saturdays and Sundays. So you 4 intense days training, kind of, I suppose you're going from probably about 7 till 4, half 4, but then your Wednesday you have a down day. Well, we have bits and pieces, but you're not physically training.
Sure.
So you might have like header injury assessment, baselines, or especially after moving to France. Obviously, you got bank accounts set up, insurance, sorting out cars, apartments, all that jazz, which isn't the most straightforward over here. They need paper for everything. So yeah, we've been pretty busy on our days off too, but we're obviously up north here, so we're only an hour from a nice beach, the Riviera of the North, they call it, the French Riviera of the North. So
beautiful.
Yeah, I went out the other day, it was 36 degrees, got onto the beach and there was no sun and wind, and it's probably the coldest I've ever been in 36 degrees, but no, it's good. There's lots to do up here as well, so I'm enjoying that. You're not too far from the coast, you're not too far from Paris if you want to head down, and then you got the TGV to the rest of France. So
phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. Can I ask you any kind of hurdles you faced over the last, I suppose, couple of years? And I suppose, obviously, with the COVID thing, obviously, it was a major situation there. But anything that you kind of came across that kind of stands out to you?
I suppose over the last few years, I probably had like my first kind of chronic feeling injury where I kind of struggled with my hips for, I'm going to say, probably 12 months, where getting out of bed in the morning was hurting. I had to roll onto my side to get up, and I couldn't kick anymore in training. It took me a good 20 minutes to get going. And then eventually I got back and I got on top of them, I suppose, kind of got some good direction and was taken aside and pulled out of training.
Was it your overtraining maybe, was it? Or what was it?
I'd say, yeah, I was probably definitely overused and I probably wasn't
working it out.
Yeah, probably just wasn't like being pointed in the right direction as opposed to it, and I was still playing every single minute of every game. And the squads in the second division in England are much smaller, so the demand on players is quite high. So yeah, and like I wasn't breaking, but I was feeling at about 50%, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
did you find COVID helped in terms of that whole, with the lockdown, everything stopped as such? Did you find it gave your body a chance to recover? Did you feel that was a good reset?
Yeah, so I suppose I find with my hips probably started feeling sore from not having load in them. It was so weird. Like, so my hips were like getting better and worse, and then I just started smashing my rehab again, and now they're fine. But kind of, I think from not having my adductors engaged and just all the muscles around my hips, like around my pelvis and that. So that was actually weird, I found. But I found like little niggles, like sprained wrists and sprained thumbs and fingers and all that kind of stuff healed, which is pleasant. To not be covered in tape again. That's all good. But and like I said, I'm on top of my hips now again. So that's been good. So then I found lockdown probably easier than most being back in Ballina. The only thing I struggled with was, I suppose, kind of not being able to see people. Like my girlfriend was back in Canada, so that was tough, and kind of the uncertainty of knowing when we were going to be able to see each other was kind of dragging on and on and on, which was a bit of a pain in the arse, to be honest. Like it's not ideal, and then kind of not being able to see your mates and stuff and that kind of thing was tough. But like the area we live in is beautiful. Like we live surrounded by the mountains and the lake, and it's all within the 2 kilometers of Ballina, like where we're based in Tipperary. So I think that was key. Being able to get out and do your hour activity or hour and a half or whatever it was, all on your doorstep was key. And then moving home, it was good. I suppose I managed to get a couple of training partners and my siblings and beat them into shape, and they beat me into shape, and it was good. It was nice kind of having that 10-week block where we could all train together and seeing everyone progress, myself included. Like I got better. My brother shifted a bit of weight off and is looking brilliant now. And my sister just started training with the Munster women's team, and she said she was one of the fittest there in one of the fitness tests or one of the fitness sessions or something. So yeah, it was good. I think it was almost a preseason in its own, but it didn't necessarily feel like it, as because you're not training with the squad, and I suppose you're doing your training, but you're training for about 2 hours a day as opposed to training for 6 or 8. So so it was good. Yeah, like you said, body's feeling good now, and
Good.
I'm enjoying this bit of preseason on top of it. And it probably doesn't feel as hard because I probably came in pretty good condition and pretty good shape after doing the 10 weeks at home or whatever. So
Yeah.
so yeah, they were the challenges.
You didn't come out of COVID anyway as a drunk or a chunk. You came out of, you came out of hunk, as the man says.
Yeah, well, I won't call myself the Hulk, but you can do that.
Oh, stop. Yeah, I suppose we're lucky. I suppose Ballina is a beautiful spot. It's plenty of walks, plenty of areas to get out and about. You mightn't see a person for miles. So, there's plenty of social distancing. Great, you could get lost in the mountains there for hours and trying to figure out your way back. But no, it's fabulous. If you hadn't chosen rugby as a career, if you hadn't kind of pushed, would you have kind of gone down the sporting route anyway, do you think?
So like I said, I started exercise and health fitness, and I probably would have finished that degree, to be honest. I don't know, I'd still be playing rugby, I'd say. Like, I love the sport, and I'd probably do what I'm doing now for free anyway, because it's enjoyable every day.
Yeah.
So I probably would have finished my degree in exercise and health fitness, and I would have gone down some road to do with that, which I'm still looking at doing now. I'm tipping away here with a couple of courses.
Brilliant.
That obviously you advised me on back when, which I haven't fully finished yet, but I'm tipping away at them and bits and pieces like that. And I'm hoping to kind of, I suppose, get some kind of personal training thing going on the side here and try and help out a few people. Like I said, work with my brother and sister over the summer and kind of seeing their transformation kind of fueled me a bit.
It's rewarding.
I've always been interested in it. I suppose it's just about being kind of trying to prioritize it a bit more outside of rugby, where every single time I try to do it, I seem to start excelling in rugby, which maybe I should keep doing it then. But I find every time I start doing it, I get real busy. A lot of away games, a lot of travel, and it's easier said than done. Oh, you're on the plane, so you can study there, but it's a lot easier said than done when you have the lads around you. Especially when it's a long travel day. Like you could be traveling for 10 hours. You might have a 2 or 3 hour bus, then a 4 or 5 hour flight, and another 2 or 3 hour bus, and after the bus you're exhausted. So it's hard to kind of plonk down and kind of retain information. You might read a book, but when you're actually trying to learn stuff, it can be difficult. But like I said, doing that bit with those couple of bits with my brother and sister over the summer kind of reignited that kind of want to get it up and going. And so
it's nice to have it, I suppose, just to have something to fall back on too, just for yourself, even at the end of a career, eventually when you decide to retire from it, at least you have, something in the background. It's always good to have something extra in the reservoir there in that tank, but kind of, I suppose the one thing I wanted to ask you is what's the one thing you always make sure you work on for yourself? What's the one thing that you always say, right, I'm going to work on that?
I suppose, do you mean with rugby or just in life in general?
No, just in life in general, I suppose.
One thing I try to work on a lot is my relationships, I suppose, with whether it's work people, off the field, with my partner, with my friends or whatever. I suppose kind of if you have that kind of aspect of your life in check, I suppose everything else kind of falls into place to an extent. Like if I'm getting on well with the lads at the club, and like since I've come here, I've tried to be as social as possible, and kind of, I suppose, I've built good foundations now with a lot of the foreign guys, and then my French is getting better every day, and I'm starting to speak more and more with the French guys again. So building those relationships is good. If you're friendly with people that listen to you, especially as a game driver, I'm calling all the plays on the hop as we go every phase. So kind of if people are like, who's this trying to think of the word that's not explicit, they might listen to it, whereas if they actually like it, they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, no worries, Shane, yeah, that's sound. So it's doing that. And then, like I said, off the field, like if you're getting on well with your mates, it's grand, you can kind of chat the breeze and it's easy. And if your partner's happy and you're coming home to a happy environment, that's always positive as well. Like, you're comfortable in every aspect of your life then. So that's probably a big one. And then obviously with rugby, you're constantly working on your skills, individual skills, kind of just trying to learn a bit more, watching other players play that probably play at a higher standard than me, and trying to just pick up little intricacies that they do, just small things, and maybe might be something as simple as realignment or how they move as opposed to how I move, trying to take the shortest route possible around the field.
Yeah, I love
things like that. So I think it's about constantly trying to improve even as you go, and then, like I said, keeping everything in check off the field as well is pretty important for me. So
it's a nice life alignment, I think, really is what you're at. You're trying to align all the dots up and get things in order and kind of, work towards your end goal and stuff. I love the idea as well that you're watching for other people and their techniques and what they're doing. Because I've always been of the belief that if you're training away yourself and you're doing fine, you can always do better if you're with someone who's better than you, because you're going to pick up more. If you're going to, it's like the gym, yourself, you go into the gym and you're lifting 100 kilos on the bench. If a guy's lifting 120 or 150, you're going to push yourself harder, and eventually you'll probably get to the 120, yourself. So there's that little bit of competition, I suppose, but not so much should be a competition against somebody else, but rather for yourself. But what you do for downtime, you were saying about traveling there a lot. So what do you do when you want to disengage from everything and disengage from rugby? And do you like binge on Netflix, or do you
occasionally I do.
Sunday, or what is it you do?
Yeah, sometimes I get lost in the Netflix world, all right. I think, as we all do, sometimes you watch that 1, 2, or 5 more episodes than you probably should. But I think it's a bit important sometimes, I think, just to do something a bit mind numbing and kind of completely switch off is nice. But yeah, I quite like getting outdoors when I can. Going on a little hike for 2 or 3 hours, I think breaks up the day nicely. It's a bit of movement as well. After my body feels a bit better after it.
Sure.
And I find that's quite good. Or just going to the beach, or just going on an adventure. I love going on adventures, even if it's just to the grocery store sometimes. But getting out and about, I think, is good. Probably drink far too much coffee, but coffee would be a big thing in the rugby circle. So we go for quite a lot of coffees as well, which is good. And then when if we have a bit of time off, I quite like to go see somewhere I haven't seen before. Obviously, we're a bit restricted in what we can do now, but there's plenty of places in France over here that I've got my eye on. So I think we probably won't have time off again now till the end of September, maybe start of October. But myself and the missus are planning a trip, hopefully down somewhere south.
Lovely.
So we'll chase the sun a bit hotter down south, even though it's, like I said, it's hot enough up here today. But yeah, you can do things, I suppose, in the country you're in, which is obviously in all the guidelines at the moment, which is quite important to adhere to as well. So you can always explore somewhere closer. So yeah, I suppose an adventure or going somewhere new, or like I said, sometimes a bit of mind-numbing telly is good too, or just chatting to my mates, or doing something like that, like you said. So it's just something kind of not rugby, but yeah. And I suppose it's all good for kind of the mental space as well, and keeping that kind of mental health and well-being, because that's probably one of the areas we all neglect. You get burned out very quickly and you can't figure out what's going on, and then suddenly you realize you've just probably overdone it a bit, and because I can imagine at times there, obviously now you're lucky you have your partner with you and stuff like that, but I'm sure at times it was tough going, with traveling on your own and being away from home and family and, all the friends. It must have been tough at times. I found it really hard the first time I went to France. When I went over, I remember one of my first thoughts was, man, I should have listened in school more. I knew French would come in handy someday. But so for the first few months, I always... Oh, Jesus. Yeah. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but the one thing, if I went back now, I knew what path I'd be taking, I would have listened a bit more. But I suppose I found it difficult the first time when I moved over, and I had loads of support out here. Like, there was loads of Irish lads in Grenoble at the time, but I suppose it was in the evenings, kind of your grand during the day. You don't miss home at all. You're fine. You're busy. You're lifting weights. You're training. You're kicking. You're making friends and whatever. But then it's in the evening when you're on your own, and it's quiet, and the voice in your head starts going, being like, oh, it's way better at home. I've got my friends' life's easier, and Manny cooks for me, and those kind of things. I think, and then kind of not really being able to make friends with the lads as quickly, because you obviously have the language barrier, and I mean, the banter at home is pretty savage, and I think kind of the banter over here is probably not as savage. And then it's also in French, so at the start it was just over my head. So you didn't really speak for the first few months, and then you start to understand, then you start being able to speak a bit, and then at the end, like, I was much more comfortable there, and like, it's been much better this time. So but then kind of since then, I suppose, like, I was back in Ireland for 3 years then, and at that stage I was 24 years old, so kind of, I know you get homesick occasionally, but not too much anymore, to be honest. Like, it's so easy now as well. With when I first went over, there wasn't half as much of video calls as there are now. Like, you know, it was possible, but the connection was horrendous.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if I want to speak to anyone, I can speak to them in 5 seconds, and it's easy. Like, there's how many different apps are there to video calls someone now? You don't get them on one, you try the other. So yeah, it's good. Like I said, don't really get homesick anymore. So yeah, kind of. So sometimes in rugby there are more lows than highs, but I think when you have those highs, they completely outweigh the lows, and it's all absolutely worth it. Kind of.
It's all about winning the experience, buddy.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, even the negative or the low points, I suppose, of my career have all stood to me when it comes to, like, I remember the first time I got injured, I was devastated, and kind of I was on my own then and kind of thinking, oh, this is literally the end of the world.
Wow.
This is the end of the world. But then something grounds you, like, you know, I know it's pretty awful, but like if a terrorist attack happens or something, and you think, oh, my ankle is sore, but hundreds of people have just been killed in that kind of way. Like, you know, then you're like, oh, right, it's just my ankle and I can still get around and I'll be fine again in a few months, kind of. So things like that kind of ground you a bit. And I suppose now, like I said, I've more going on off the field now than I would have when I was younger. Kind of that helps as well. Like, you realize it's not the end of the world. Like, you know, other people have problems too, and it's not all about you. So I suppose that's probably been beneficial to me. Like, so.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I suppose one of the questions that probably many people are listening now is kind of what advice you'd give to someone who's starting off, like yourself had started off. Is there anything, if you had known something, we'll say back then, obviously you said French, but if you know, the message there is probably stay in school anyway and get that done and have that box ticked. But is there any kind of advice you'd give them, you know? Well, obviously you haven't given up either, and I think that's something that needs to be highlighted. You didn't let the fact that you didn't get selected for Munster Academy and stuff stop you. You looked for alternative routes, and I find that absolutely inspiring. You know, that you were, I suppose, at a young age, and still, no way am I giving it up. And it's almost, as you said, the two fingers. It's like, let my haters be my inspiration, almost. You know, so I love that.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't want to say never give up. Kind of, it's the most cheesy line out there, but yeah, sometimes things don't go to plan. Like, but you suppose you have to be resilient in the sense that if you gave up every time something doesn't go your way or something doesn't go to plan, God, you'd be changing and chopping every single day. Like, you know, nothing is ever going to go perfect for everyone, and I suppose it can depend on whoever as well. Like, you know, kind of even the most successful people, things don't always go right for them, but I suppose they find a way to make it work, and they'll try and look at it as, from a different point of view. And something I find really helpful with that is speaking to someone else and kind of giving them my point of view, and then listening to what their point of view is, and kind of maybe advice on what they think I should do. And in the end of the day, it's my decision, and I'm pig ignorant, so most of the time I'll probably try and do it my way anyway, and then learn that the other way was proper or better. But yeah, I suppose just about being resilient, and kind of, I've always been stubborn, and I think I probably still am. You know, like I said, I pick and choose my battles a bit more now. When I would have when I was younger, it was my way or the highway, whereas now you're kind of you're a bit more open to the world, and But yeah, I think you just gotta hang in there sometimes. Like sometimes it's tough, and like I said, I've changed club a couple of times, like, you know, and been released once or twice when I feel like I shouldn't have been, which is upsetting and kind of disappointing. But you bounce back, you move. Like when I left London, I thought I shouldn't have been let go. It wasn't really my fault. It was out of my hands. There was a couple of different parties involved in it, and it kind of just fell apart at the end. But then up in Nottingham, I had. It's probably one of the happiest I've ever been in my rugby career. So if I hadn't left Ealing and moved to Notts, I wouldn't have enjoyed that so much. So kind of, yeah, every door that closes opens another one. You know, if you just keep resilient and you keep trying to go and go and go, like, you're going to find enjoyment and happiness somewhere. So just don't give up, but just keep going, figure it out. Like everyone is smart enough to figure out a way. So about figuring it out.
It's just sticking it out, really, isn't it? Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah.
A question for you, I suppose. You probably have many of these people, but who's probably been the most influential person in your life?
Yeah, there's been an awful lot of them, but I suppose kind of from a young age, I've had unwavering support from my parents. I know everyone says their parents, but like, I mean, going from driving me 3 mornings a week before school to training when I was 15, 16 to driving me to training 5 or 6 evenings after school or on the weekends playing 2 games, or going back to mum would have driven me to Limerick 4 or 5 times a week just to use the club gym in Young Munsters, and she would have sat in the car park for an hour and read her book, which is
phenomenal.
30 to 40 minutes in, like, so you're talking that's nearly 2.5, 3 hours of her night gone 4 times a week, like, just because I want to go and do something where that sacrifice is massive, like, you know. And then kind of anything I've ever wanted to do, I've had 100% support behind me. So I suppose, mum and dad have been unbelievable from a young age. So that's probably the biggest one. And then obviously you have coaches that you've really clicked with who, there's been loads of them, like, you know, who you learn things off and who you stay in contact with regularly now even. So that'll all be massive. And then I suppose it's just my support system has been huge. Like, my missus is incredibly supportive now. Like I said, my parents have always been, my grandparents would have always been. And then my mates have always supported me 100% as well, no matter what. Like, if not giving me too much of a hard time if I've decided not to be social because I have a match in the morning or I have a match in 2 or 3 days, as the case would be sometimes. But I suppose the top of the pops for the last 27 and a bit years of being mum and dad, and it's been incredible. So fair play to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and it must have been tough seeing you, I suppose, fly the roost. You had to, you know, head off, and watching you leave must have been tough on them too, you know. But I suppose in a lot of respects, like, I as many of the books that your mom might have read and the many training sessions your dad put into you and stuff, I suppose they're kind of living their life a little bit through your eyes as well, and they can kind of see some of the benefits of what the decisions they made were obviously the right ones. And as parents, it's kind of hard to say it's the right one or the wrong one. You kind of go with the flow at the best of times, but to have that openness though to allow you to express what it is you needed to do is super. It's incredible, and I think any parent listening, it's something they need to tap into, because I think as parents sometimes we often don't listen enough. You know, we spend most of our time talking. And when you're talking, you're not listening. But I was going to say to you, a fun question for you. If you had a superpower, what would it be? There's one. Superpower
would definitely be to be able to run fast, like the Flash, because, man, I get some amount of stake over being slow. So,
oh, really?
Nah, not too slow, but just I'm quicker over the first 10 than I am over the next 30. So, so yeah, no, I think if I could be a bit faster, that'd be good already.
Flash.
Yeah, so,
I love it.
Yeah.
Flash or Leary. It might stick yet.
I
love it.
It'll stick now in a sarcastic way.
Listen, Shane, it's been awesome talking to you as always. I love the conversations. Anytime we have a chat, it's brilliant. You're a world of knowledge and an inspiration, absolutely. And I think anyone listening in is going to find the very same. And there's a lot to be taken from what you've done, and I suppose your attitude. And I've watched you over the years develop as a player, but not so much even that, but as an individual. You know, I think that's life too, but absolutely amazing changes and just an amazing character. So listen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Cheers, thanks for having me on, Jason. It's good to chat as always.
Thanks, Shane.